Hello, I'm Robert Kline. A recent newspaper or magazine feature of me said from the mailroom to the boardroom, and my journey as a studio head and filmmaker has been a wonderful one because I started out in the mailroom at MCA Universal and ended up becoming the assistant to Lew Wasserman, the legend who ran Universal. And I signed a 4-picture deal with them, one of which was a remake of Todd Browning's classic Freaks. But they wouldn't let us use the title MGM, so we called it Being Different. And another one was an idea that I came up with about art fraud and what a big billion-dollar business it was even back in the 80s. And the way I got out of the mailroom is I'm delivering mail one day, and Dr. Jules Stein, who founded MCA Universal, came out and said, "Young man, come into my office, I want to talk to you." And I came in, and he reached in his desk and he came out with a little flashlight, and he reached over to me and he says, "As I suspected, you have pink eye." Now, to have the founder of MCA Universal, who was an ophthalmologist before he became in film, and he said, "Come back in when you have a letter from your doctor and you'll be out of the mailroom." And I became the assistant to Lew Wasserman, and that led to me becoming the youngest vice president in the history of 20th Century Fox. Second only, I should add, to Richard Zanuck, who was Darryl F. Zanuck's son, who is a friend of mine and my boss. And at Fox, I was very fortunate. I would end up doing Orson Welles mysteries, working with Orson Welles, which in itself is a story. And after a decade of being at Fox as executive vice president, doing series like MASH, Room 222, How Green Was My Valley as an award-winning series, it was time to move on. And as a going-away gift, Fox gave me a 12-picture deal in Australia. And in addition, my former president, Gordon Stolberg, became head of Mitchell Silverberg, the law firm, and one of his clients was Astral Bellevue, headed by Harold Greenberg, who was partners with the Brofman family, and I signed a 4-picture deal with them, one of which was a remake of Todd Browning's classic Freaks. Dale Browning did that scene, but he got the gig from Spielberg because he did Heaven and Earth for Oliver Stone and me as the military expert, and Spielberg saw what he did with war because he has a firm. Dale died. One of the things I produced was Star Lost, sci-fi movie. To cut between it, I wanted to do The Fugitive in outer space, and I hired Keir Dullea, who was in 2001 for Stanley Kubrick, and we shot it in Canada, shot it up there, and I hired as a director Douglas Trumbull, who won an Oscar for 2001. For special effects. And one of the 2-hour specials I did was a tribute to O.J. Simpson. And then I got a call from Roone Arledge, who was head of ABC News and Sports, and he said, "We're going to have to take your series down for a while. The Iranians have taken over," this 79, "the Iranians have taken over the American embassy in Tehran, and we're bringing a journalist by the name of Ted Koppel up from Washington, but it'll only be a couple weeks." Well, 28 years later, Ted Koppel was still on the air. I put together a series at Fox called Bracken's World, which was a studio head, and I had made a deal with Spencer Tracy to host it. He was going to get $1.5 million, and all that he would do is tops and bottoms, take you into the show, and it would be stories of, and it was 5 starlets on the lot. And I went to a Dodger game at Chavez Ravine and got to Spencer Tracy's home 5 minutes late. And Katharine Hepburn met me on the lot and said, "You're late for Spencer's meeting. Leave my home." So we had to go out and we got Leslie Nielsen. And sadly, Spencer Tracy died shortly thereafter of cancer. So it would have been a moot point anyway. Yeah, I had to go through with the same guy last night. And he says, "And your president, when he leaves, you think he'll tell the American people he was really born in Kenya?" And I say to him, you know what that deals with, don't you?
Yeah.
Birther movement?
Yeah.
I said, "Here I've been," he said, "Weren't you on television during this whole thing?" I said, "Yeah. My dorm mate in college was Neil Abercrombie Jr., who went to Hawaii, became a graduate student. He then ended up dating a young white girl from Kansas. They broke up and he fixed her up with an exchange student from Kenya by the name of Barack Obama Sr. He impregnated her and abandoned her, and Neil went to the hospital to bring the baby home. And when Donald Trump was dealing with the birther movement on television with Fox Network, Neil was now the governor. Neil became, up to 4 years ago, the governor of Hawaii, and he's the one who published the birth certificate. What I'm doing now, people ask me, my recent productions have been very high profile. I did 2 movies on JFK for Warner Brothers. I'm doing a 3rd one in the year 2017, because it's the 100th anniversary of John Kennedy's birth. Interesting enough, John Kennedy was born within 3 months of Nelson Mandela and Indira Gandhi. They were all born in 1917. I did the Princess Grace project for Warner Brothers. My wife and I did the sequel to March of the Penguins called On the Wings of Penguins for Warner's 4 years ago. And in the last 3 years, I did 2 very high-profile movies on Ronald Reagan, one called Ronald Reagan, An American Journey, and the other, The Reagans, on both Nancy and Ronald Reagan. And if I said it, it would be both arrogant and self-serving, the 2 best movies on Ronald Reagan. It was said by Nancy Reagan last year when she premiered the movie at the Reagan Library. And she said, you know, to the audience, standing room only, Bob never voted for, I felt I owed it to her to tell her I never voted for Ronald Reagan either time. She said, but we didn't need his vote. We won in the 2 biggest landslides in the history of this country. What he gave us was great movies. I'm developing for Lionsgate the Patty Hearst, not documentary, feature of a script I've commissioned. That's in its 2nd rewrite. And I am doing War and Betrayal, a script narrative about the internment of Americans of Japanese descent, which takes the hero to the 442nd, which is a Japanese regiment that they were forced to get out of Manzanar. They had to join a regiment, and they were used as fodder over in Europe, and became the most highly decorated division ever. So that's what I'm doing now.
It's funny, Ronald Reagan.
Michael, is that you?
Yeah, am I disturbing you?
Very.